Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this press conference in probably one of the most beautiful settings you can have. I just want everybody to know Manitoba Infrastructure provided the weather today, just to be very clear on that one. So, welcome, everyone. And no, it's provincial jurisdiction.
When it's
Yeah,
bad, it's federal.
yeah. And uh, it's going to be another one of these great and dynamic announcements. It's part of our Manitoba Restart, the part of the $500 million announcements. With us today is Ian Wishart, the MLA for Portage la Prairie, and our Premier Brian Pallister. And Premier Pallister is going to be making this very exciting, and I call it a creative and innovative announcement today, dealing with one of our projects on our highway system. Very excited about these. You've heard some great projects listed previously. This one is right up there. So, Premier Pallister, would you come and make the announcement, please, sir?
Morning, Ian. Thank you for your work in promoting what I'm announcing today. And Ron, thank you for your work. In particular, I want to thank you, and through you, I want to thank the members of your department for your handling of the recent flooding incidents in Westman. That was a tremendous and shocking amount of rain to deal with, and the consequential issues I think were handled really well by your department. So congratulations on that. We're working hard as a government to safely restart our economy, and we are also working very hard to restore the services that Manitobans rely upon. We've taken steps to assist those in need, and now we are making investments that will strengthen our economy, but not just in response to COVID. We want to make investments that make sense for Manitobans both now and in the future. So as part of the $500 million Manitoba Restart program, we have allocated $65 million in funding for major highway projects. Dans le cadre de notre programme de redémarrage de Manitoba, nous avons alloué 65 millions de dollars en financement pour de grands projets routiers. I am excited today to announce that we are going to be doing the funding for a study aimed at making the intersections of highways 1 and 16 both safer and more efficient. But I am also excited not so much about the study, because there have been studies done before on that intersection. Many studies have been done on improving that intersection. No work's been done on it. Well, not significant work. We did do some recent signage improvements. I think those signage improvements have helped improve the safety of the intersection, but that's not enough. It remains one of the more dangerous intersections in our province. In part because these are the two of our major interprovincial highways, and they intersect at a 90-degree angle. We've seen some tragedies there. We've seen 3 fatalities in the last 5 years, but we've also seen 22 traffic accidents, which could have resulted in many more deaths and did result in many injuries as well. These are our 2 major east-west economic corridors. So my excitement is not just in the fact we're doing the study, but in the fact that we're going to have shovels in the ground by next spring. We'll proceed immediately after October, when the study is slated to be complete, 2 public consultations. Interested parties will have the opportunity to provide their views on this. Subsequent design finality will result in the project being able to advance in the spring of 2021. Yes, we've added some features to improve safety in the short term, but the greater goal here is a long-term solution, a permanent solution that results in safety on the long-term basis. We've talked about this project. People have talked about this project for decades. It's going to proceed now. We'll proceed for many reasons, principally the safety reasons, but it is, as I mentioned earlier, a principal economic corridor, and not far from the intersection of Highways 1 and 16, you can see the economic progress in our province in the form of the new Simplot facility that is ready to go and going, and the Roquette facility, which is slated to begin operations later this year. That's exciting too. And those customers and those contributors to those 2 companies and many, many others in the province of Manitoba will benefit from this safety as well, because they are job-creating companies that rely on safe transport, not only of their finished goods and products, but on the pre-production side as well. And they need an effective, safe transportation network to profit and to function. The people who work for them and the people who support them in their businesses do too. Now the other piece of this is that we are going to design a roundabout for this intersection. This is the first of its kind on the Trans-Canada Highway system. There is a roundabout on the Trans-Canada Highway in the middle of Kenora, but that's the only one we're aware of, not on the perimeter where the major traffic is, around Kenora. But we have a roundabout model, and we have constructed it some time ago now, I think 3.5 years if I'm right, at the junctions of highways 2 and 3. And if you've traveled through that piece, you know that similar to 1 and 16, was a dangerous intersection, and a 90-degree angle approaching from Highway 2 onto 3 meant that there had been accidents, and there was the danger of many more. The roundabout, I can tell you, has worked. The intersection has not had a serious accident since that roundabout was put in place, and that's good news for everybody. Now that intersection is less busy than 1 and 16, as virtually every intersection in our province is, but it is an indication of how that kind of construction can work. It's a new concept, but it is a proven one. Manitoba has proven it, and so we're excited to proceed with it. Now this is a challenging time in our province, and we all know that, but it is also an exciting time. And so these are new ideas, and they'll be implemented here in Manitoba. We're implementing many new ideas in Manitoba, and we're seeing many of them succeed in making us better able to deal not only with COVID, but with the other fiscal challenges that we must deal with for our future. And now is the opportunity for us to chart a bright new course for our province going forward, and that's exactly what we're doing. The investments that we're making today, and this is one of them that we're announcing today, are going to help us all to be able to be sure that the only thing better than today in Manitoba is going to be tomorrow in Manitoba. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Premier, for that announcement, and we are now prepared to take some questions. Premier?
I know of the tragedies at that intersection because it is near my hometown, and my family, of course, some of my family are in Portage-la Prairie. I know that local community leaders that I've met with have wanted us to address this issue for some time, and I know they'll be very, very excited about this announcement today. And I know also that the frequency with which people travel those two highways, not just locally, though local people will care very much about this and be very pleased, but truckers, tourists, from around the country use those two main highways. And that intersection's been known for a long time to be a scary intersection. And we know of many close calls and many stories of people in winter conditions, for example, coming down 16 a little too fast and gliding right into the Trans-Canada Highway. This will not prevent all accidents, but what it will do from Ron's research and our preliminary discussions is decrease the probability of a T-bone. So more accidents there'll be accidents that will continue at every intersection, but they'll be glancing or angular accidents, which means that lives will not be lost with the frequency that we've had over the last few decades at that intersection.
Premier, why a roundabout as opposed to an overpass type system?
Well, I know the department's looked at other models. They've had engineering people or experts give preliminary recommendations. The recommendation is we can expedite this project more effectively in this way. Previous studies, I'm familiar with some. As a member of Parliament, I was involved in advancing the idea of changes at that intersection, and I was privy to some of the studies the government had done on this. There have been numerous proposals. Some of them have been much, much more expensive, I'll say this, without the commensurate necessary improvements in safety. So one of the proposals, for example, because of the main rail line to the north, if some of you are familiar with this intersection, you'll know it's, about a half mile, Ian?
About a half mile, less than that.
Was going to have an overpass actually over that, and the rail line going lower, I believe, and there's then also a water body further up. If you get where I'm going here, this project will achieve the safety improvements we need without the additional massive expense and delays that you would see with some of the other designs.
Have you collected data on the intersection of Highway 2 and 3, just anecdotally going through there
Yeah, this I can share a personal experience with you on this because my first time dealing with roundabouts as a driver was when I was playing. I was pitching for a ball team in New Zealand. Now, if you've never driven in a roundabout before, that's bad enough. But when you're driving on the other side of the road going into a roundabout, that's a little frightening. So I can tell you, I understand the need for us to train and equip in advance, and we've already talked about some of that, because this will, for many drivers, be one of the first times, perhaps, on a main highway that they dealt with a roundabout. Roundabouts are increasingly used around the world, and a common, increasingly common and familiar thing for people. But I appreciate what you're suggesting right now. I think people are going to have to understand that you give way, right, on the left side. And we're going to have to get that message out there, and obviously that's going to take some adjustment.
Premier, Highway 116, driven there, but why is it so dangerous? You mentioned vehicles sliding into it, but is it confusing when people are approaching it? And because I know about the fatalities you're talking about.
Well, Ian and I have actually talked about this over the past number of years. People coming down the Trans-Canada aren't used to stops. That's one of the things that happens, and same with 16. I think you would have to go, where would be a light on 16 before you'd have to go into
Saskatchewan.
You'd have to go into Saskatchewan for a traffic light. So truckers, we've had reports of truckers actually going completely across the Trans-Canada Highway to the Long Plain First Nation, and asking people, where's the Trans-Canada Highway? And they went right over it and didn't even know. So it's a question of advance warning. We've started with more of that here in the last couple of years. Advance warning that you're having an intersection, slowing down, and these are things that will help save lives in and of themselves, we hope. But the actual intersection itself, being a 90-degree angle, is a significant danger, additional danger to travelers and to local people as well, obviously.
A busy railway.
I'm glad you asked that, because it gives me the opportunity to say we're not going to give you any cost analysis because we aren't to tender yet, and that would be foolish on my part, because we want to get the best value for money on the tender that we can. And so I will not give you a cost estimate at this point for that reason.
Is it a significant difference when we're talking about a roundabout compared to an overpass?
Oh, sure. Like an overpass construction would take much longer and be much more money. Yeah, absolutely. COVID-19. I've heard of it.
We're in regular talks with the federal government. Is there a deal coming close to being reached on emergency federal money for the provinces?
I'll tell you about that when I have something to say. I was pleased today to note that the Canadian Federation of Independent Business released an analysis of their survey of their members, and noted that 62% of their members have had trouble getting people back to work because of the design of the CERB program. I've been advocating for changes in the design of that program for over 2 months, and now finally we have a business association noting that its members are telling them what we've been getting told as MLAs for the last 2 months.
But in terms of federal money for the provinces,
Yeah.
is there a deal close?
Well, as I said, I'll tell you when I have something to say about that.
On the CERB, other than the CFIP, does your government have any independent statistics or data to show, or to give some estimate as to how many people, what proportion of people that are taking the CERB could be working but aren't working in favor of staying?
Not really, Tom. You know, we asked for numbers from the feds and got some fuzzy numbers. We've got some numbers there also flux because we're recovering, right? So they're changing by the week. What a lot of the decisions, and you've noted this in some of your comments, a lot of the decisions the federal governments and the provincial government have had to make have had to be made quickly and without proper, what we would normally say would be proper analysis. I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm just going to say that we're doing the best we can with what we have. And what we have is a certain knowledge that the safer we can be, the better chance we have to get this to be a V. And if we can keep focused on the safety side while encouraging people to be confident that they can go back to work and be safe there, they'll be more likely to apply for a job. But if we have a program that punishes them for going back to work beyond $1,000 a month, then they'll be discouraged in going back. And so it's just common sense to say, if you make $1,000, you get $2,000 from CERB, but if you make one more dollar, you lose $2,000. Well, that doesn't make sense. As long as that program is in place the way it's designed, it stands as a discouragement to people to go back to work. Even if they feel confident, as many Manitobans are increasingly feeling about going back to work and being safe, they'll be reluctant to go back for the dollar issue alone. So this is why we've advocated, and I have the support of a number of premiers, and Bill Morneau has himself acknowledged there are some design problems with CERB, and he would rather see us go to the wage subsidy program as a principal support mechanism. But as long as that CERB program exists with that block, it'll discourage people from applying for work. That's what the CFIB survey says in spades, but that's what we've been hearing from small business people increasingly for the last several weeks. And I want to be really clear on this. I'm not advocating for the elimination of CERB, and I never have. I'm advocating for the design to be changed so it stops punishing people who want to get back and take more shifts.
On your program,
Sure. Yes, sir.
how do you know you're not just playing people out of going back to work anyway?
Yeah, it's a fair question. Certainly you don't know, because the economy is restarting. But this is, I think, it's a fair thing to observe that when you have over 60% of the businesses surveyed saying the number one reason people aren't coming back is the CERB design or the CERB program, I think it's a pretty compelling argument there to support us having some incentive to counter that. And so that's what we've done. We're not proposing this as a long-term thing. I would hope the feds would make design changes and our program wouldn't even be needed, Tom, in 2 weeks. I don't have the up-to-date numbers with me, but the numbers are growing on a daily basis, and we're really pleased to see that. And I'm also pleased, I said yesterday, and this is unusual for those who have interviewed me from the press for some time for me to say this, that I hope we go over budget. But I do hope we go over budget on the incentive programs because it means people are able to get back to work. And so when we're seeing a steady reopening of businesses, our wage support program is going to be needed as those businesses either expand or reopen. And so I'm very excited to see more uptake on those programs. I know we had our first opportunity to meet as a caucus yesterday in the same room while distanced. And I know that people are really excited and we're sharing news about how their communities are starting to feel more confident, businesses starting to reopen. I think we're all excited about that, with the conditions that we must remember that COVID isn't going away. Yeah, we've had, my reluctance always to share comments of anybody in those discussions, those forums. They've been private discussions, but certainly there have been some concerns expressed by many around not just the design, but the rollout of that program. Same with the wage subsidy program. Should have been out earlier. I think, and again, the finance minister has said that himself, so it should not be taken as a shot at Bill. I'm not making a criticism here, but when you put the CERB program out first, and then you wait several weeks to get the wage subsidy program, naturally people went to the CERB program, and it's oversubscribed, and it's creating a problem now. Several provincial governments, as you know, and we did as well, extended the period of time where evictions were not, let's just say, were highly improbable, let's put it that way, to try to give strength to the possibility that some negotiation could advance on that front. There's been a discussion, but I'll just say there's more, there may be more that comes out of these discussions in the not too distant future, and I wouldn't want to preview in any detail what might be announced by my colleagues and myself at the same time. We'd like to have a joint issuance of our approach as premiers. It is, but I'm also, it doesn't give me comfort to say this, but I will say relative to most jurisdictions, it's not as much of a problem here. That is not to say it isn't a problem for some of our businesses, for sure. Great news in the Winnipeg real estate front, and some of you may have read their release, but record real estate activity in Manitoba year over year. Not just exciting because of the catch-up reality. You know, when your market slows for a couple of months, you're going to catch up, but year over year numbers are really incredible. So that's exciting on the real estate front, because there was a lot of concern, I think, as recently as a few weeks ago, among homeowners that we had talked to and got feedback from, that their property values would drop because of COVID. That doesn't seem to be happening. These are encouraging things for Manitoba homeowners, Manitoba business owners too. So good to see you. Beautiful day.